Let's talk about how to pass the first round video interview for Morgan Stanley. What's up guys, it's Mike from Job in English. If you don't already know me, I've been helping graduates and professionals get into top jobs in the UK and abroad since 2013. Today we're going to be talking about the first round interview process for Morgan Stanley, namely the higher view one-way video interview and what you can do to pass the interview. We're going to talk about some fast facts for Morgan Stanley which you can use in your answer to why you want to work for Morgan Stanley. We're going to discuss the format of the interview and what you can expect. And finally, we're going to be going through some common questions that we found from our research from publicly available sources for Morgan Stanley interviews from people who've taken it this year. Let's get started. In 2023, Morgan Stanley reported a revenue of $59.8 billion. As of December 31st, 2023, the firm reported total assets in excess of $1 trillion. Morgan Stanley operates in 42 countries and employs over 60,000 staff. One of Morgan Stanley's headline goals is to have $10 trillion assets under management, which they are well on course to do, having reported in their last quarter now managing over $7 trillion. The company's commercial banking segment has set an ambitious target of providing $30 billion worth of funding from 2024 to 2026 for sustainable financing projects. In 2023, the company donated over $130 million to their charitable foundation, and Morgan Stanley staff donated over 10,000 hours to various charitable projects which Morgan Stanley is involved in. Recently, Morgan Stanley launched a mentorship program to help people from minorities and women gain a foothold in banking, and they had 1,500 participants in their first year. So what can we expect from the format of Morgan Stanley's interview? Now, many of you who are applying for investment banks will be familiar with HireVue, which is synonymous with video interviewing. Namely, this is a one-way video platform where you sit in front of a computer screen and are given a certain amount of time to prepare and then to answer a question while you're being recorded. Now, interestingly, in our research for Morgan Stanley, which we went through, the number of questions did vary. I would hazard a guess that for most graduates, it would be 4. Some candidates reported there being 3 questions. Some candidates, which were much less, reported there being as many as 8 questions. However, I feel it's going to be almost likely that you will get 4 questions with 90 seconds to answer and 30 seconds to prepare. Again, some candidates reported that they got as much as 2 minutes to answer and 1 minute to prepare. But I'd much rather that you prepare for having less time and then be given more time on the day. Something that was quite interesting with Morgan Stanley that I haven't noticed elsewhere is, first of all, you do get a second chance to record your answers. And also secondly, that for more technical divisions such as investment banking, fixed income or equity analysis, you will also be asked technical questions which you will be expected to answer. Very often I wouldn't expect to come across technical questions for investment banking until you reach your assessment center, but with Morgan Stanley this doesn't seem to be the case. So before we get into Morgan Stanley's 8 most common interview questions and how to think about answering them, I just want to go through something which I think is really important for you, which is knowing and understanding Morgan Stanley's core values. There are 5 of them, and a lot of the questions will relate back to their core values, and you can find them on their website. Number 1, do the right thing. Number 2, put clients first. 3rd, lead with exceptional ideas. 4th, commit to diversity inclusion. And 5th, give back. Now, a lot of times companies will say that they relate their interview process to their core values, but this was something that candidates mentioned time and time again, that it was really important for you to understand and use the language that was given to include in your answer. Remember, when you're delivering a response for a video interview software like HireVue, your answers are going to be passed by an algorithm, and they're going to be looking for particular keywords and phrases in order to automatically grade your interview. So it's more important than if you were being interviewed by a person. Let's go through the 8 most common interview questions that we came across from Morgan Stanley and how to think about answering them. Question number 1, tell me about yourself or walk me through your CV. Now, these are 2 slightly different takes to the same question. With tell me about yourself, for those of you who have been watching me for some time, you'll be familiar with the 6-step structure that I give. Namely, what are you doing now? What have you done in the past 3 to 5 years? Work experience, extracurricular activities, skills and interests, and finally ending off with a hook. If you're watching this video and you haven't already created a personal introduction, then make sure you click the link down in the description below for my application success secrets, where you can get all the handouts and help that you need to get your first, next, or last interview. Now that's your personal introduction. What about walking through your CV? Is it any different? Not really, particularly if you're using the CV structure that we have spoken about. So you would talk about the course that you're currently studying, then you would go through and in chronological order, talk about your work experience. Something that's quite relevant when talking about investment banking is that they're generally going to be more interested in banking related experience. However, if you don't have any banking related experience, then just make sure you are able to pick out the key skills or experiences, whether that be from a different role, that you can relate for the job that you're applying to. As ever, the most important thing for you to have on hand is a really good job description so you can understand the job that you're doing and mold your answers to show that you are a great fit for that role, those skills and those experiences. Question 2, tell me about a time you detected a potential issue to a potential problem and solved it. Now this is a little bit of a left field question. It's something that I came across a couple of times, but really what this is to do with is about good preparation and planning. So say for example, you're going to talk about a project which you did at university. Now it could be you're detecting a problem with the amount of work that you have to do, with data analysis, with the teammates that you're working with, and a lot of this comes down to really just having good communication. And something that's really important when answering competency questions is not just using the STAR format, which is situation, task, action, result, and delivering the majority of your answer in the action part, also thinking about how you would teach this question. So a potential problem could be one of your teammates saying that they're actually due to go on holiday for 2 weeks during a project that you have to carry out for a month. So in order for you to anticipate this issue, you try to front load the work that your colleague has to do in the first week and the last week, and then you allocate other tasks to the team members who are going to be there. This makes sure that the team member who's away doesn't miss anything, and also that your other team members don't become resentful or bitter about the fact that somebody is away and not doing their work. Question 3, why did you want to apply for Morgan Stanley? Or why do you believe that you're a good fit for Morgan Stanley? Now, as you heard from the start of this video, I went through 7 or 8 very key and specific facts about Morgan Stanley. Now, interestingly, Morgan Stanley is a business where it's quite difficult to find their annual report. However, you can find a wealth of information from their 10K, which they legally have to submit to the US Securities and Exchanges Commission. The other thing that you can do is pick through their quarterly reports, or something that I quite like to do with investment banks, which is go through their media presentations. Media presentations tend to be much easier to learn information from, because essentially Morgan Stanley is pitching this at an audience who may not be investment banking savvy, and also they're wanting to present the things that they believe put them in the best light for the media and their shareholders. Make sure that you're picking 5 or 6 specific facts that are rooted in some sort of data and also can't be said about any other company. And if you want to upgrade on your answer, then try to relate it to something which has a personal, and if you want to upgrade your answer, try to relate it to something which is personally meaningful for you. For example, it could be the number of women that work in senior management positions in the bank. It could be related to your ethnicity, or some sort of charitable or environmental work that the bank is doing. Question 4, what are 3 words that your manager would use to describe you? Now personally, I don't particularly like this question. I find them quite difficult and also not very useful. The best advice that I can give to you for answering this question, which only seemed to really prop up with Morgan Stanley, is think about 3 words which are relevant to the job that you're going to do. Having the job description to hand, is it really important that you are numerical, that you have excellent analytical skills, that you are really good at interpersonal communication, have good sales and marketing knowledge that you need to use? So not really thinking about 3 words that your manager would use to describe you. You're thinking about 3 words that demonstrate to the high view algorithm that you're a really good fit for the job, and then provide a very short paragraph of evidence to show that this is actually true based upon something which has happened in your life. Question 5, what interests you about this role? Now, when answering questions which are related to, why do you want to be a fixed income analyst? Why do you want to work in equity research? You should always think about breaking down your answer into 2 parts. Part number 1 it's explaining about what the position is. So namely, what would you do day to day in this position? Are you expected to get any sort of qualification? Who would you be expected to work with? Would you need any sort of hard or technical skills? And the second part of your answer is related to what are 2 or 3 specific skills that you think will make you really well suited for the job, and also what's the evidence that you can provide. So always have a really clear idea and understanding of the job description, what it is that you need to do, and if what's being provided by Morgan Stanley isn't helpful, then you can always use prospects or just a job description from a different company. Question 6, tell me about a time when you displayed superior analytical skills. And more positions within investment banking are data driven and highly analytical. And increasingly banks are looking, and have been for at least the last 5 years, for people who have good data analysis skills. This is a really good opportunity for you to talk about working with data, talk about the technology or software that you have used, how you have interpreted that data, how you've been able to clean the data, and what you have been able to find that has helped you to complete a report, work within your dissertation, or maybe contribute towards the work that you are doing. Question 7, what was the hardest decision you ever made? Now for me, counterintuitively, I always relate this question to what has been the greatest accomplishment in your life. Personally, I feel that this is a really good place for you to inject a little bit of personality into your answer. Yes, you can include the skills that are relevant within the job description. I would personally encourage you to deliver something which is deeply meaningful to yourself, which has a lot of resonance and has something that you feel was genuinely hard or genuinely a proud accomplishment for you to overcome, rather than a very common thing which I tend to come across, which is people talk about something which is highly trivial, which is clearly being staged in order for you to say what you think I want you to hear. Question number 8, tell me about a recent piece of business news. Now you should absolutely expect to be asked about recent business or financial news whenever you're applying for an investment bank. Sometimes they will also relate this to a latest trend or technology that's being used. It's a really good idea, if you're watching this and thinking about applying to an investment bank, that you are subscribed at least to a weekly newsletter or roundup. Could come from Bloomberg, CNBC, MSNBC, Financial Times, or something as simple as BBC Business News. But it should be something where you're able to keep on top of the general comings and goings within the market. And if you're going to pick a recent piece of business news to talk about, make sure that it is microeconomic and not macro, because you're really going to struggle to talk about a big macro piece of business news in 90 seconds. So pick one thing about one company and what you think about that thing. Guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Please let me know if this was helpful for you for your interview. What brings you here to watch this video? Make sure that you like the video, drop me a comment down below.